My name is Victoria Yaneva, and I'm a data scientist at the National Board of Medical Examiners in the USA. And the paper I'm presenting today, as mentioned by Javier, is not part of the proceedings of the Learning Analytics Conference. It was presented last year at the workshop of using NLP for educational applications. And so we are very happy to have the opportunity to be the ambassador paper for that interest group to present our work here and reach more people and learn more about what you do. So thank you for that. And without further ado, I am going to start talking about the topic of predicting the difficulty of multiple choice questions in a high-stakes medical exam. And the first thing is going to be to present an example of what these questions look like. So this is an example item from our exam, the United States Medical Licensing Examination. And you can see that it contains a fairly wordy part that describes the case, the chief complaints of a patient, and then it asks a question. And then the examinee has to choose the correct answer among several possible answer options. And the part that is in the red square we refer to as the item stem. So this is the description of the case. Then we have the lead, which is the actual question being asked, and we have answer options. So these are the possible answers. Their number may vary, but we always have only one correct answer, which we refer to as the key. And obviously the incorrect answers are distractors. So this is the data format that we are working in, and we are trying to identify, to automatically predict how difficult a question like this could be for our examining population. Well, first, why is it of interest to predict question difficulty? For example, you can have a look at these two questions and try to say which one is more difficult than the other. And spoiler alert, even if you had medical background and you were an expert being asked this question, the accuracy is actually very, very low for humans trying to determine fine-grained differences between item difficulty. And also, as you can see here, we don't really have any surface features relating to reading difficulty that can really tell us which one is more readable than the other. Moreover, we are interested not just in mere reading difficulty, we are interested in the conceptual difficulty of these items and what kind of cognitive processes are required in order to identify the correct answer. Currently, this information is being collected in the following way. So all items that are included in a test, they need to meet certain quality criteria related to how difficult they are, how well they are able to discriminate between students of low ability versus students of high ability, and so on. So this information is being obtained through pretesting. This is embedding new items in a live exam without scoring them. However, the examinees don't know that they're not going to be scored on these items, so their behavior for solving them should be similar to their behavior for solving live items. And so this is a very necessary procedure, but it is also very costly because of seasonal effects. A new item has to spend an entire year being a pretest item, and also the exam is very expensive. It's a 9-hour exam, so we have few slots to embed new items, so we can assess around 40 new items per 9-hour exam. So this is a challenge. And naturally, there seems to be a need to have at least some kind of a filtering step before pretesting, where these slots could be assigned to items that have a higher probability to survive the pretesting procedure. And this becomes especially needed in the framework of automated question generation. For example, even technology-assisted question generation at the moment can result in having many generated items, for example, through manipulating certain variables in an item shell or an item template. However, they still need to be pretested. So how do we choose from many generated items which ones to embed in the live exam? This is a natural bottleneck where having an automated filter could really help us achieve better outcomes. The data we used for our study consists of approximately 12,000 multiple choice questions from the United States medical licensing examination. These were all written by expert item writers who are following strict standardization guidelines. For example, one of the rules is that there shouldn't be excessive verbosity. All the information that is needed to solve the case, that is contained in the item, is needed to solve the case. There is nothing extra. There is no window dressing, adding any additional information, no so-called red herrings, so nothing in the item should be purposefully misleading the test taker. There is special care being taken to avoid grammatical cues. So, for example, correct answers that are longer or more specific, more complete than the other answer options. There can't be the same word or phrase that is included both the stem and the correct answer unless it is also included in the rest of the answer options. And there is a number of stylistic rules. For example, they concern abbreviations, conventions, drug names. All answer options are always presented alphabetically in order to avoid stylistic cueing and so on. So this is a process that is vetted at several levels, and there are editors who check whether all these rules have been met. And as you can imagine, when the items are so uniform on their surface structure, this makes it very challenging to distinguish between various levels of difficulty, and supposedly this keeps the reading difficulty homogeneous across items. All items in our sample were pre-tested through being embedded in live exams during 2012-2015. The respondents were all examinees who were from US and Canadian medical schools, and they had no way of knowing that they wouldn't be scored on these items. And each item was answered by an average of 328 examinees. It's important to know that the people who take this test take it in order to obtain a license to practice medicine in the United States. So they're all very highly motivated to pass the test, and they prepare for this for a very, very long period of time, and they take it very seriously. So what is our difficulty measure for the items? We refer to it as P-value, which is the percentage proportion correct answers. Please make sure that you do not confuse this P-value with the P-value that signifies statistical significance. These are completely different things. Here, if we have an item that was answered correctly by, say, 32% of all the examinees who answered that item, then the P-value for that item would be 32. And here is the distribution of P-values in our sample. As you can see, it's highly skewed. Because this exam is so important for the test takers, many of them prepare very well and many of them pass the exam. And then based on this information, we have a number of criteria on whether a pretest item should be included as a live item later on or should be excluded. One of the criteria is related to difficulty. So any item that has a p-value below 35 or above 95 is not considered for inclusion in live exams. However, at the moment we are not concerned with this. What we are concerned is with the prediction of a continuous variable, p-value, and this is its distribution for our data set. And in order to build our prediction model, we extracted three main types of features. I'm first going to mention each of these types and then going to elaborate on it. The first type is linguistic features, which measure surface linguistic complexity. The second type is embeddings. They represent item content, and this is similar to what Zach mentioned in the first presentation in this session. And we also extracted information retrieval features. So these refer to a system that we developed, which was an automatic system that tries to answer the items, answer the questions, and based on how well it answers the questions, we extract features relating to the difficulty of these questions. So starting with the first group of linguistic features. We extracted more than 100 of these, covering various levels of linguistic processing. For example, we had 21 features related to the lexical level, such as average word length or noun count. Then for the syntactic level, we had 27 features. Examples of these include sentence length or number of prepositional phrases. Semantic ambiguity features were more so tailored towards the medical concepts in the items. So we used an external ontology that has medical concepts, and for example, we measured the average number of such concepts in the ontology that could potentially refer to a single medical term in the item. And so that is a measure of how ambiguous some of the medical terms were. We also included 7 readability formulae. This was more so to exclude the possibility that a readability formula that takes into account simple measures such as word length and sentence length could predict the difficulty of our items very well. We have cognitively motivated features relating to imageability, familiarity, concreteness. These are all based on measures from psycholinguistics. Word frequency features and also text cohesion features such as the number of causal, temporal, or additive connectives. So this is the first group of linguistic features, which, as you can see, has distinctive subgroups. Now, with the embeddings, we used 2 types of embeddings, Word2Vec and Elmo, which we extracted from medical text. And now a few words about these embeddings. So these are vector representations of each question, essentially. And these vector representations are based on millions of word co-occurrences, and they can be used to perform mathematical operations and to measure similarity. So there is the famous example that if you get the vector representation of the word king and you subtract for it the vector representation of the word man, and add the vector representation of the word woman, then you would get something that would suggest that you're looking for the word queen. So this, as you can imagine, is very useful for our context where we can measure the similarity between items, knowing that one item was very difficult and a highly similar item would also probably be very difficult. And finally, a few words about the information retrieval features. We started off a working hypothesis that there is a positive correlation between the difficulty of questions for humans and for machines. Now, at this stage, we don't know if this is true, and testing this hypothesis was kind of a byproduct of this research. So we trained an information retrieval-based question answering system, which was shown recently to outperform not our particular system, but information retrieval-based question answering systems actually outperform deep neural systems in competitions where the task was to answer 8th grade science questions. So even though there are huge advances in this field when we talk about reading questions or more generic questions, when it comes to multiple choice questions, it's still a very challenging task, and information retrieval performs at least on par with more advanced approaches. So we trained such question answering system, and we used the relevance scores produced by the system as a byproduct features to predict difficulty. I'm not going to spend a lot of time to talk about how exactly we did that. It is included in the paper, and if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to ask. We just experimented with extracting information from different parts of the item. And so we have these 3 types of features: the linguistic features, the 2 kinds of embeddings, Elmo and Word2Vec, and the information retrieval features. We split our data into training, validation, and test sets, and the first step was to choose the best algorithm based on the validation set to perform our experiments with. And somewhat surprisingly, the non-neural models performed better. Distinguishably, we chose to work with the random forest model because it had the lowest root mean squared error for the validation set using the full set of features. We also worked with several baselines. These are the results for the test set. So the first one is the 0R baseline. It simply takes the mean of the p-value variable for the training set and assigns it as a prediction for the test set. Then word count. We just wanted to roll out the possibility that, say, longer items are more difficult or something like that. Then we took two popular readability features, average sentence length and average word length in syllables. And we also applied a popular readability formula with the caveat that this formula was not created or validated to be used in medical multiple choice questions, and it is certainly the case that it doesn't really perform very well. As you can see, it has the highest root mean squared error of 27.61. So we rule out the possibility that really readability formula can predict the difficulty in our set better than the 0R baseline even. So the strongest baseline here was the average word length in syllables. And all future results that we present, we compare to this baseline. So these are our ranked results. Here you can see that we report results for both the test set and for 10-fold cross-validation, because since we decided to use random forests, it wasn't too computationally expensive to perform cross-validation as it would have been if we had used the deep neural network. And we have a combinations of all features and then different subsets of the features, and towards the bottom of the table you can see the individual features. And we report the root mean squared error and compute significance using bootstrapped significance testing with 95% confidence intervals. And actually, using the information retrieval features alone is the only result that doesn't perform statistically significantly better than our strongest baseline. You can see that having all features or almost all features, as it is in the purple case, leads to the best results, and that the actual improvement over the baseline, albeit statistically significant, is somewhat minor. Another interesting thing to observe here is that the individual feature groups complement each other rather than extract signal that is overlapping. So that was valuable to us in order to see that we capture different signals using the different feature groups. And even the IR features, even though on their own they didn't perform so well, they do add value to the combined models. We also performed error analysis. We took the 500 test set items with largest error residuals, which essentially accounts for the bottom 20% of the test set predictions. And we saw that largest errors occur for items with very low p-values, which essentially, if the p-value is below 62, this accounts for 34.5% of the data. And if you remember the histogram that shows the distribution of the p-value, it was really highly skewed. So this clearly is a function of seeing fewer examples with lower p-values. And we also wanted to have a closer look at the linguistic features because they're a lot more interpretable than the embeddings, for example. And what we did here is we first computed the root mean squared error prediction for all linguistic features, and then we would take out one group and see how the performance changes. And obviously, if the performance improves, then if the importance deteriorates when we remove a feature group, then obviously that feature group was somewhat important, and vice versa. So here we can see that the readability, cohesion, and lexical features didn't really add that much of a value. While the semantic ambiguity and the cognitive features were more important than the others. However, each distinct group of linguistic features did introduce some difference at least, so they do have varying signals. And to conclude, in summary, item difficulty could not be predicted with accuracy higher than chance using the surface readability measures. So these would be the word length in syllable, sentence length, and so on. They did not outperform the 0R. However, item difficulty could be predicted with significantly higher accuracy using a combination of linguistic and IR features together with embeddings, where the model using all features performed the best, followed by the embeddings, followed by the linguistic features and the IR features at the bottom. And the strongest linguistic predictors of difficulty were semantic ambiguity and cognitively motivated features, followed by word frequency. Errors were largest for items at the lower end of the P-value scale. So these are the main conclusions. And the final part would be what do these results mean in terms of implications for generalizability and practical importance. So on the positive side, these are mostly very generic features with the exception of a few features that relate to medical concepts. So this approach should be highly generalizable and could be applied to other MCQ-based exams. On the negative side, we still don't know if MCQs from other exams would have similar characteristics. For example, many MCQs have less text, or they could include mathematical operations. So it still remains an empirical question of how generalizable this approach is. And another very important point that needs to be emphasized is that statistical significance does not necessarily equal practical significance. So it is a very encouraging result that for this very challenging problem, we are able to extract some signal that gives us statistically significantly better results than our baselines, but this doesn't still mean that we can use this productively in practice. One point that is in favor of this model, however, is that our examinee population was really homogeneous. So these were people who did very well at school, were able to get into medical school, were able to complete their medical school exams, and now appear some test that is very important to them. But if we had a more heterogeneous examinee population, such as K-12 students, for example, we could be better able to predict the difficulty of items from such exams. So part of our future work is to apply this method for other exams and see how the predictive ability changes. Thank you. Any questions?